Good morning and welcome. It's 9 o'clock in the morning. It is the 30th day of December 2021, the night before New Year's. Can I get to 1,000 subs by midnight tomorrow night? Yeah, probably not. Maybe by August 4th, 2022, we can have 1,000 subs. But still, I'll keep trying because I am your guide to all the tabletop role-playing game news, weather, sports, internet nonsense, and controversy, the OGGM. And remember that M stands for moron. And today it is D&D Storytime. D&D Storytime from Says Games and Anime. Ding! So yesterday I was exchanging post with one of my people on the vlog comment section. I don't know what you call those, followers, I guess, subscribers, about wizards, because it was on the Hickman thing, and you know how hardcore wizards were in the older editions when you're rolling a d4 for hit points at first level and you got like 1 hit point and stuff, and got to talking about how wizards survived, and this wizard did this, and he said something about a wizard that had like a war wagon, and I talked about a wizard that I played that had a little wagon, and then most recently that I played in a game where my wizard stole a bench, and the individual said, okay, I want to hear that story. So this is the story. This is from the last 5th edition game I played in. This was before COVID, so let's say about 2 years ago. It was a game another individual stopped after my game ended, and I gave up trying to run 5e, and it was played over here at Cess Games and Anime. I joined the game late, so I sort of missed what the whole plot was. I was just told the party kind of needed a wizard. So I was like, sure, I'll run a wizard. And I was looking for wizard builds. And I found this build for running a gnome wizard and how you could, basically it was a min-max optimized build for a battlefield control wizard, combining the dice rolling thing from the divination wizard school and some other stuff, so I could use that potent ability to lower people's saving throws and then just control the battlefield through illusions and walls and stuff like that. So that was the build for the gnome. And again, I started this game like 3 sessions in, so I never really got what the plot was. So there was I was sort of supposed to be just kind of in the background, the support character, but the way the table grew and exchanged, it sort of became that there were 2 sides to the table. There were the sides of the table, the people who actually just wanted to play D&D, move the story forward, interact with each other and interact with the world, explore the world, build up their characters and stuff like that. And then there were the other side of the people who just wanted to play Critical Role. And there was some friction between the 2 sides, but we generally got along. The DM was pretty good at both fulfilling the desires of the players who wanted to be, I want to go sell my cupcakes and I want to go collect whatever. And those of us on the other side were just like, okay, that's fine. You can do that, but let's not make the whole game about it because we've still got this quest. We've still got things to do. Let's interact with the world. Let's move on. And there was one player who was just never really happy with their character. So that caused even more friction. And that individual would play a character for 2-3 games, be upset because the character couldn't do what they thought it was supposed to do because Critical Role, bring in a new character, play that character for 2-3 games, be unhappy, bring back the old character. So that increased the friction even more. And there was friction with that player and the DM because they were dating or used to be dating. So this is all leading up to the story. So obviously there was already some friction at the table. And the night in question, it was raining outside. Everybody was cold and wet. And the friction was getting a little bit more. So that was playing out with the way our characters were interacting. And slowly my gnome wizard, who was supposed to be just sort of in the background support, had slowly begun to become much more important and with the party, and actually sort of ended up secretly being the leader of the party, even though he always said he wasn't. And there was sort of this little team of me and my gnome wizard and my friend's elf cleric and how we played off each other and how we played off the other people at the table and how we played off this character who kept leaving and coming back and bringing in new characters. And we were always talking about, oh, great, break up with us. And then you come back and you expect us to just accept you back after you broke our heart and, you know, stuff like that. So there was a lot of playfulness and a lot of banter, and some of the people were appreciated, but it was sort of just a miserable night anyways. And the DM kind of played off of how it was just sort of miserable and wet anyways, and there was a sort of this bantering and friction at the table, and that sort of the characters were, you know, now miserable and stuck in the rain, and we had to get to this inn. And I guess this was a module he had found in a magazine or something that he wanted to run. So we're in this inn, and we sort of become trapped. And it turns out the inn is run by a bunch of old adventurers who have, over the years, collected things and stuff like that. So they sort of have this tournament dungeon that they've built underneath the inn to see how test other adventurers, test out things that they've collected over the years, stuff like that, traps and tricks and things like that. Very much, you know, Tomb of Horrors, Thieves' Gambit type of module. And somehow we were like, have to go into this dungeon. The only way that we're going to help you with the quest and give you the things you need and all the things that we were there for, and we just wanted to leave, and we just wanted to get the MacGuffin that we needed to get. And supposedly these guys could help us, but they weren't going to help us unless we went through their little playground dungeon. So we're like, sure, fine. And I'm like, oh, sure, fine, whatever. I don't want to do this, but apparently I have no choice. And they read the rules to us, and one of the rules, and here we go, here's how the story starts. One of the rules is, well, this is an adventure built by adventurers, so you can take anything you find in the dungeon as your reward. And my gnome wizard's like, what, anything? Are you sure about that? Because I was, angry, and I was playing that my gnome was angry and didn't want to be forced into this, and we're miserable because it was wet outside and raining, and our characters were miserable because of the situation, and there was this friction going on within the party, so I just needed something to take my anger out on and still sort of play how my gnome was pretending to be sort of goofy while secretly being a manipulative individual and slowly gaining his power. So I was like, are you sure? Are you sure we can take anything we find in the dungeon? And they're like, yes, anything you find in the dungeon. I'm like, you're absolutely sure? Yes. So I was like, I'm holding you to that because I'm going to vandalize the hell out of this dungeon. So that's what I did. I became a dungeon vandal. As we're going through this little test dungeon, I was knocking things over. I was breaking things. I was like, every time we were in a room, I look around the room. And one of the rooms we went into had a bench. And I was like, is the bench nailed down to the floor? And the DM's like, no. I was like, I'm taking it. Kind of like Peter Griffin in the scene where they do the Star Wars, where he finds the couch in the garbage scoop. And he's like, this is a perfectly good couch. I'm taking it. And I'm like, I'm taking this bench. Why? I don't know. They said I could take anything that wasn't nailed down that I found. I found this bench. I'm taking it. So I'm dragging this bench behind me, and I'm just putting things on the bench and strapping them to the bench, and like go into another room, and there's this puzzle involving masks on the wall, and I'm like, are those masks on the wall able to be removed? And the DM's like, yeah, why? I take them. I was like, what? I vandalized the fuck out of this dungeon. I'm taking those masks. I just take them off the wall, strap them to my bench, and keep going. And I'm just doing this. And then every time the DM's like, what are you doing? It's like, I told you, I'm vandalizing the hell out of this dungeon. I don't want to go through here. I don't like the fact that we're being forced to go through here. And I want to make sure that these assholes upstairs never do this to anybody else ever again. So I'm just vandalizing the fuck out of this dungeon. I'm setting shit on fire. I'm breaking shit. And the DM's like, okay, and they're going to be mad. And I'm like, no, they're not. They said I could take anything I found in the dungeon. I found this bench. I'm taking it. I found these masks. I'm taking it. I found this vase. I'm taking it. Whoops, I dropped it. I found this bed. I'm taking it. Whoops, I accidentally set it on fire. But it's mine. I took it. I licked it. It's mine. You can't be angry at me. I asked you, could I take anything I found in the dungeon? And you said yes. So through the 2 hours of him running this dungeon and just wondering what horrible thing I'm going to do next while I'm just figuring out all the puzzles, and me and the cleric are working together to take out all the living and crabs, and everybody else is just sort of flabbergasted at what I'm doing and the cleric's doing, and how we're just, basically steamrolling through this dungeon, because between the two of us, we're just figuring out every trick, every trap. Our spells play off each other so well that between me and her and another player character who's playing a ranger, archer, we're just basically decimating this. And every time we take a step and I look around the room, I'm like, I'm taking that. And I not only just take any, and I don't think I actually took any actual magic treasure or money, because I don't remember leaving that dungeon with anything. But I took everything, just anything I could strap to that bench. Anything I could take off of a wall, anything I could carry in my hands. And when I come out and the wizards are all like, we're not going to help you. You destroyed our dungeon and you did. I was like, you said I could take anything I found. I found this bench. I'm taking it. I found these masks. I'm taking it. And it turned out the masks had some kind of magic in them for the trap. So that ended up being my treasure, that I had this mask now that I could use to cast Fear spell out of. And then they're like, what are you going to do with all these vases and broken vases? And I'm like, I'm going to sell them. And they're like, oh, God, you just, and then finally they have to give us the reward and give us the thing that we needed. And they're like, oh, God. And I'm just like, never make anybody do this ever again. Or I'll come back and I'll vandalize the fuck out of the next one, too. You cannot force people to do something like this, and you're in. But eventually, yeah, we got the MacGuffin that we needed to get to move on. We spent the night. Everybody, all the NPCs in the inn are like either cheering us or because they won money on us, or like looking at us, and the half of the table that is actually trying to play D&D are like, great, we got all this stuff because the gnome took these things and we can use some of this stuff, or we can sell some of this stuff. And the other half that is trying to turn it into Critical Role, and the one that's always complaining about our character, are just like, I can't believe you did it. I didn't get to do anything. I didn't get to do anything. And we're like, you didn't try. What do you mean you didn't get to do anything? We're literally like, thief, do your job, and you're not doing your job. So of course we did it for you, because you were just too busy whining and complaining. So that sadly continued the friction with the party. And it really sort of became two groups at the same table who were sort of trying to work together, but also ended up sort of working against each other. And there was constant arguments because these players that were trying to play Critical Role were just sort of like dragging the game down and turning it to thing. There's like a whole nother thing where we were in a city with a librarian, and they're just trying to be all Critical Role with the librarian, and we're all trying to be like actually get the information from the librarian that we need. And I end up blackmailing the librarian and stuff like that. And there's another one with a bunch of witches and the stuff where like this player is so obsessed with finding poisons, and we're all just like pointing out the fact that we're in a swamp and you're surrounded by poisons. But so yeah, eventually the game collapsed because just the two groups couldn't get along, and we just got tired of the other group trying to sort of self-destruct the campaign in the goal of making it more like Critical Role, and that their characters couldn't do what they thought they could do, and just read stuff. But that throughout the game until it ended, I had a gnome that was occasionally, and I was like, yeah, where's the bench? I'm like, oh, I don't know, I'm dragging it behind me. That's it's on my horse. And I kept the bench for like 2. We got to the library, so for at least 3 games, I've got this bench, and then we get to the library, and I just leave the bench there in the library with all the others. And they're like, what are you doing? I was like, I'm not going to drag around this bench. It's heavy. And they're like, well, why did you take it? And I was like, because you said I could. So here you go. There's the story about how my gnome wizard stole a bench and why. Hopefully you appreciate it or not. Maybe you think I was a jerk to the people in that game. I was referred to as a toxic gatekeeper more than once. So who knows? I think it's a funny story, and I think it could have been a great game if we just could have worked together. But that's the trouble, I guess, with 5e is that there's a lot of people who play 5e who expect it to be something other than 5e. But that's a whole different story. So there you go. I hope you appreciate the story of how I stole a bench. This entire campaign was played over at Seth's Games and Anime. So if you're ever in Ventura and want to play some Dungeons & Dragons or any other tabletop role-playing games, give us a visit. We're open Wednesdays through Sunday from 12 to 7 p.m., and we would love you to come on by and play some role-playing games. And don't forget, we're still having that 75% off Black Friday sale. Till next time, I have been the OGGM. Please consider subscribing if you appreciate this content, and I will talk to you later. Stay warm, stay dry, Happy New Year, and stay off my land.